The Committee on Homeland Security Subcommittee on Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Protection will come to order. The purpose of this hearing is to receive testimony from Jen Easterly, Director of Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA. I now recognize Ranking Member Swalwell for the purposes of seeking unanimous consent.
Thank you, Chairman. I ask unanimous consent that the gentlelady from New York, Ms. Clark, be permitted to participate in today's hearing.
Without objection, so ordered. I now recognize myself for an opening statement. Welcome back for our second subcommittee hearing of the Congress. Last month, we hosted industry leaders to give their perspective on the state of American cybersecurity, and particularly how the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, has developed since its creation 5 years ago. I'm glad that we will hear directly from CISA Director Jen Easterly and her views on CISA's evolution and where it needs to grow and mature by 2025. Director Easterly and I have had a fantastic working relationship since I started as ranking member of the subcommittee last Congress. I look forward to continuing our strong bipartisan relationship this Congress. In our last hearing, there were some common themes from our witnesses that I hope to further explore with Director Easterly this afternoon. First, we learned that CISA must work with the industry and interagency partners to ease the compliance burden that industry faces from duplicative regulation. It's clear that our nation must increase resilience to cyber risk across the board, particularly within our critical infrastructure sectors. But we must find the right balance between regulatory burden and improving security outcomes. We also heard a lot about one of CISA's newest initiatives, the Joint Cyber Defense Collaborative, or JCDC. We heard that JCDC has the potential to be a value add to the private sector, but additional transparency around its mission and processes would benefit both the JCDC and industry. Finally, and perhaps most foundationally, we heard about the need for a robust cybersecurity workforce. We need not only enough people, but the right people with the right skills in the right jobs. This is one of my top priorities this Congress, and I'm looking forward to hearing Director Easterly's perspective on how CISA can best contribute to the development of our national cyber workforce. This hearing is timely and comes as we are evaluating the President's fiscal year 2024 budget request. CISA is requesting $3.1 billion, $145 million increase over fiscal year 2023 enacted, the fiscal 2023 enacted funding level. The dialogue we have during this hearing will help inform our committee's review of the budget, particularly the new programs CISA proposes within, including the evolution of the National Cybersecurity Protection System. I think I speak for all members on this dais when I say that we want CISA to succeed. Its mission is too important to fail. It is our responsibility to ask pointed but productive questions about CISA's stewardship of the resources and authorities Congress has given it. As I said in our last hearing, Congress intends to be a partner to CISA to ensure the agency meets its full potential. Director Easterly, I look forward to your testimony today, and I thank you for being here. I now recognize the ranking member, the gentleman from California, Mr. Swalwell, for his opening statement.
Thank you, Chairman, and welcome, Director. It was just 12 hours ago that the Chairman and I were here early in the morning with our colleagues voting. I don't think we voted the same way on many of the amendments yesterday, but on this issue and your success, there is no daylight between the Chairman and I and my colleagues. Your success is America's success in this space, and that is something we are rooting for and want to enable. I also represent a East Bay, California district that is home to tech giants like TriNet and Workday, but also an emerging cybersecurity insurance company called Cowbell Cyber, and have worked with all of them to protect not just large companies, but small and medium-sized companies from emerging threats. As the Chairman said, CISA is at an inflection point, and Congress made CISA an operational component of DHS 5 years ago. Since then, its budget has nearly doubled, and Congress has provided it with a range of new authorities, from mandatory cyber incident reporting to persistent threat hunting on federal networks to cyber sentry. And CISA has ambitiously taken on new responsibilities to meet the demands of an evolving threat landscape, building trusted relationships with new stakeholders in the process. For that, I and our team commend CISA for its proven ability to dynamically respond to evolving threats ranging from election security to open source software vulnerabilities to the Shields Up campaign. And as it relates to election security, I hope to hear an update from CISA on some recent successes. It has launched promising new initiatives, including the National Risk Management Center and the Joint Cyber Defense Collaborative, a collaboration that so many outside organizations, private sector folks are asking, how do we get in? How do we participate? Which to me means you are a victim of your own success in that regard, in that there's high interest in growing and expanding the ability to share information and collaborate to take on our threats. All of these are worthy efforts. I support them and am committed to their success. Today, I look forward to hearing how CISA will continue to deliberate in the new work it takes on and the commitments it makes to our partners. As more stakeholders become aware of CISA and its capacity, they have placed more and more demands on its resources. CISA cannot be, as you know, everything to everyone, and it certainly does not have the resources to boil the ocean. Becoming the powerhouse cybersecurity and critical infrastructure defense agency, CISA has the potential to be requires clear strategic direction and determined leadership. I have every confidence that Director Easterly has both, and I will be interested in learning more about your vision for CISA moving forward. I'm also interested, as I referenced, in the future of JCDC. Stakeholders have applauded JCDC as an innovative, flexible tool for CISA to gather and fuse threat information, foster real-time collaboration, and push out security practices through initiatives like its Shields Up campaign. Over the past year and a half, CISA has expanded JCDC's focus to include open source software security and protecting high-risk communities like journalistic or civil society organizations. Although these are worthwhile efforts, it's unclear what criteria JCDC is using to select which areas to focus on, which organizations to partner with, and not how these activities are tied to the JCPO's original purpose of streamlining cyber planning and operational collaboration. I look forward to candid conversations about defining JCDC's core functions, how to ensure JCDC partners are involved in decisions about its future, and how it can bring a more proactive posture to CISA's defense activities. Formalizing the answers to these questions through authorization will ensure JCDC has enduring value for years to come. On a related note, I understand that CISA is in the process of revamping the National Risk Management Center and look forward to learning more about plans to make it CISA's analytical hub. Finally, it's critically important that CISA do more to secure industrial control systems and other operational technology. I appreciate CISA's support for my legislation that we passed into law last year, the Industrial Control Systems Cybersecurity Training Act, which will solidify the existence of meaningful training courses to ensure OT remains at the forefront of our security focus. As I'm sure you will agree, CISA must develop that workforce now, not 5 years from now, while also doing more to promote threats, to understand threats to OC systems, push out its cyber performance goals, and grow programs like CyberSentry that monitor our OT threats. Thank you again to the Chairman for convening us here today. Thank you, Director Easterly, and your team who's worked with us for your testimony, and I look forward to a robust conversation about attacking the threats that we face. I yield back.
Thank you, Ranking Member Swalwell. I do not see the Chairman or the Ranking Member of the full committee, so other members of the committee are reminded that opening statements may be submitted for the record. I am pleased to have Director Easterly before us today to discuss this very important topic. I ask that our witness please rise and raise their right hand. Director Easterly, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give before the Committee on Homeland Security of the United States House of Representatives will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Let the record reflect that the witness has answered in the affirmative. Thank you. Please be seated. I would now like to formally introduce our witness, Jen Easterly. She's the Director of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency at DHS. She was nominated by President Biden in April 2021 and unanimously confirmed by the Senate on July 12th, 2021. It's no easy feat. As Director Easterly leads CISA's effort to understand, manage, and reduce risk to the cyber and physical infrastructure Americans rely on every day. Before serving in her current role, she was the head of firm resilience at Morgan Stanley, responsible for ensuring preparedness and response to business-disrupting operational incidents and risks. Director Easterly also has a long tenure in public service, to include 2 tours at the White House. Director, thank you for being here today. I now recognize you for 5 minutes to summarize your opening statement.
Thank you so much, Chairman Garber. Well, members of the subcommittee, for the opportunity to appear before you today. I'm really excited to share what we're doing to ensure that the CISA of today and of tomorrow is the agency that our nation deserves. As America's cyber defense agency, CISA leads the national effort to understand, manage, and reduce risk to the cyber and physical infrastructure that Americans rely on every day. Since CISA was established in 2018, the threats we face have become more complex, more geographically dispersed, and they affect the entire cyber ecosystem, from federal civilian government agencies to businesses large and small to state and local governments, and ultimately the American people. CISA's mission has never been more urgent, and it's a sense of urgency that each of us at CISA feels every day to ensure that we are making the best use of the resources and authorities that Congress has generously provided to us over the past several years, and demonstrating a clear return on investment to both you and to the American people. As you're well aware, the past 2 years have been pretty intense. From the SolarWinds supply chain compromise to the ransomware attack on Colonial Pipeline, from vulnerabilities exploited in Microsoft Exchange servers to vulnerabilities mitigated in Log4j software, from our Shields Up campaign to safeguard critical infrastructure from Russian malicious cyber activity, to efforts across the nation to help state and local election officials secure election infrastructure during the 2022 midterms. CISA, along with our partners, has been front and center in each. We've aggressively leveraged all of the authorities that we've been granted to enhance our operational visibility into federal civilian networks through persistent hunting, to conduct planning and operations with our industry partners, including our operational technology and industrial control system partners through the Joint Cyber Defense Collaborative, to identify vulnerable systems through our admin subpoena process and notify our partners to prevent them from being exploited, to serve as both a sector risk management agency for 8 sectors and 1 subsector, and more broadly as the national coordinator for critical infrastructure security and resilience, working with our sister SRMAs to reduce cross-sector risk. And even as we've maintained the highest operational tempo in an increasingly complex and demanding threat environment, we've been growing and maturing as a new agency, co-creating a culture of collaboration to enable us to attract and retain the best talent in the nation. And indeed, growing that talented workforce by nearly 1,000 new teammates in the last couple years. Meticulously executing our rapidly expanding budget to ensure we remain responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars. And last September, we published our first ever strategic plan, which outlines our ambitious goals through 2025 across 4 key pillars: cyber defense, risk reduction and resilience, operational collaboration, and agency unification. I greatly appreciate this committee's steadfast work to help CISA achieve these goals, and also appreciate that the tenets outlined in the CISA 2025 plan, from optimizing the organization, growing an expert cyber workforce, enhancing operational visibility, advancing our capabilities, harnessing partnerships, and measuring outcomes to determine progress, are all well aligned. So our efforts together can advance a shared vision for cybersecurity in America. We're aggressively executing this plan, working with our trusted partners to enable a collective defense of our critical infrastructure, to include working with those target-rich, cyber-poor entities like small businesses and school districts and water facilities and hospitals and local election offices, to ensure that they have the resources and tools they need to improve their cybersecurity and build resilience. Needless to say, there is much, much more to be done to protect and defend our nation's critical infrastructure, from driving adoption of secure by design principles in our technology products to championing corporate cyber responsibility in every boardroom to implementing a groundbreaking cyber incident reporting regime, and much more to be done to mature our great team and optimize our value to our partners, with perhaps no partner more fundamental to our success than you all. We would not be here today without tremendous bipartisan congressional support, especially from this committee and this subcommittee. We are very grateful for your commitment to ensuring that CISA is armed with the talent, the resources, and the authorities necessary to meet our mission of reducing risk to the critical infrastructure Americans rely on every day. This is truly a no-fail mission. And thanks to your support, we are thriving. And while we're proud of what we've accomplished to date, we recognize the criticality of continued support in terms of authorities and budget to ensure that we sustain this progress. We must and we will continue pushing hard under your oversight and with your support to strengthen this agency and, by extension, the security and resilience of our nation. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Director Easterly. Members will be recognized by order of seniority for their 5 minutes of questioning. An additional round of questioning may be called after all members have been recognized. Well, and I'm not going to call myself first because my vice chair has another hearing she has to go to, and I know she's got some very interesting questions. I would like to yield. I recognize Ms. Lee from Florida for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Director Easterly, for being here today. In my former role as Florida Secretary of State, I had the opportunity, of course, to work with you, your predecessor, Director Krebs, your team over at CISA, in working to secure election infrastructure. So I'd like to begin there with a couple of questions about that sector and the work of CISA in the elections arena. Starting out, would you please describe for the committee what CISA does in collaboration with state and local election officials as it relates to cyber-specific risk assessments, and then also, where appropriate, the deployment of hunt and incident response teams to state and local elections offices? Would you please describe those services, when they're utilized, and whether you see the need for them increasing or decreasing?
Yeah, thanks so much. And thank you for your partnership and your leadership on this issue in particular. So as you know, we've been in this role now since 2017, and we have been learning constantly about the demands of election security, election infrastructure security, and really, I would say, refining our relationships with state and local officials to ensure that we are meeting their demands. As I think you know, from 2017 to 2020, our focus was very much on those cyber services, from vulnerability scanning to remote vulnerability assessments to penetration testing to helping with incident response. I think actually we are in a much better place in terms of cyber hygiene and cybersecurity with our election infrastructure. One thing that we found, however, going through 2022 was that the threats were very different now. Not only was there cyber, but there was also physical security issues, there were insider issues, and there were issues of concern around foreign influence and disinformation. So while we continue to provide those cybersecurity services, we are actually expanding our full range of services based on the demands that we're getting from state and local officials. And so one of the things that we did earlier this year was set up a full roadmap along 5 lines of effort, and we provided it to our state and local election officials. There are a full range of those cyber security services that you mentioned, Congresswoman, but also physical security, insider security. And then we're really pushing hard to get beyond the state and the state election directors so we can get down to communities and counties and parishes and towns, because we see those are the entities that are truly rich as a target, but cyber poor. So the other thing we did is we put together a placemat of services so that there was no mystery in terms of what we offer. And we made that available to all of our constituents using our field forces that we've grown, almost doubled over the past several years.
And on that subject, I know one of the challenges that faces CISA and many other partners across sectors as it relates to technology and cyber is recruitment and retention of appropriate, talented, trained people. And I know CISA launched the Cyber Talent Management System back in 2021 with the intention to be to recruit and retain the appropriate professionals you need for your workforce. How has CTMS been working? You mentioned the expansion of your team. Have you been able to effectively and efficiently recruit? And how does your fiscal year 24 request support the use of that operation and recruitment?
Yeah, thank you for asking the question. That was, as you probably know, about 7 years in the making. And so actually implementing it has been something that's been a real project that we've continuously had to look at how it's working and ensure it truly streamlines our ability to bring on more talent. I think we're at about 80 people with the cyber talent management system and some really extraordinary talent. At this point in time, we continue to use our Title V authorities, our normal authorities, to bring on talent. We are hoping to use CTMS more aggressively this year. But I will tell you, I think the recruiting that we've done to date is a real success story. 516 people last year. We're on pace to exceed that. Our retention level is between 7 and 8%. And it's not just quantity. We are bringing in some of the best talent across the country. While our workforce has grown every year, the request that we put into the budget only adds a very small increment, I think maybe 10 people. And so what we're doing now is trying to get down to about 90% total. And then, of course, we'll focus on retention. But to be frank, I am okay if somebody comes to work at CISA for 3 to 5 years and then goes off to a hospital or a power company or a bank to help them with their critical infrastructure security, because at the end of the day, this is really about collective cyber defense, and we need to work together hand in hand.
And Mr. Chairman, my time has expired. I yield back.
The gentlelady yields